Right. So tonight we're going to go over Numbers 16 through 18, and teaching for tonight is the Kohath, or also known as Korah's rebellion. So chapter 16 is really going to go into the focus on Korah's rebellion, the 250 men that wanted to be priests, and then it's going to go into chapter 17, which is going to focus on the plague due to the rebellion, which killed 14,700 people of Israel. And then we're going to jump into Aaron's rod, and then in chapter 18 is going to be the responsibility of the sons of Aaron being priests. So starting off with the rebellion in chapter 16, one of the things that I always kind of ponder on is what actually starts a rebellion. So I'm going to ask you guys, internally, what starts it? How does a rebellion start?
Do you mean
in yourself before the big rebellion? How does it start? What's the root of the rebellion?
You have pride and arrogance.
Pride and arrogance? Okay.
I mean, there's a good form of rebellion too, right?
There is.
Jesus was a rebel.
In some ways.
That's what I was going to ask.
The biggest rebel in history.
Okay.
That's what I was going to ask. Negative or positive?
Negative.
Okay.
I think there's a belief system that's probably broken. Once you cross that barrier, that's typically when it starts.
Okay. So, broken of a belief system.
Yes, sir.
Somebody else?
Somebody wants something.
Somebody wants something?
They have an unmet expectation.
That expectation. That's good.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Ungratefulness.
Ungratefulness. Okay. So one of the bases of it is self. And we can go all the way back to the beginning where Lucifer wanted to be just as great as God.
Right.
So the first thing that I thought was pride.
Yeah.
Pride, arrogance, and what's inside of me has to be what it is, because I want something that is unmet expectations, or I want somebody's position. I know that when I was in California and I was a children's pastor, I can't tell you how many people came after me just because of a position. And I'm like, you can have it. It's just a position. I don't really want it. I just want to do the work that I get to do. The title doesn't mean anything. But people would come after you with a reckless abandonment of, I should have that position, I served here longer, or I did this, or do you know who I am? You know, and it starts in self, because inside of yourself, with whether it be the pride, the arrogance, the unmet expectations of I should be able to do this, it also gives the self-exaltation of I should be in that position. Not where I am now. I should be there. And if you think about Lucifer, he was the greatest of all the archangels. You had the throne, and he literally stood right to the left. He's right there. There's not much higher position that you can be besides God than where he was at. And it was still met with unmet expectations of, I want to be that. It was based off the position or the authority that he wanted. So, the other thing which self also leads to with rebellion can also be jealousy. Because that person has that, well, why can't I have that? You know? I know my kids are notorious for, why does he get to do that? What about me? Well, great example. Grayson came home, he was student of the month. He gets to pick where we get to go to eat. Jaden, I didn't get to pick where we went to eat. Hey, dude, you were student of the month in December. So, we went to Applebee's. But I wanted to go to Red Robin. You didn't even know about Red Robin. You can't do that. Oh. So what I do? Watch him walk down the room, mumbling. Okay? So I walk down there, poke my head into his room. Stupid Grayson. Just because he's student of the month, he gets to pick where we go eat. I was student of the month. Who cares? I'm like, dude, it's okay. It's okay. So we sat down. I'm like, dude, you were student of the month. You got to do these things, right? Yeah. It's Grayson's turn. Yes, but can't it be my turn again? When you're student of the month again, you can go and do that too. So, you know, from there, if we kind of jump into our reading portion of it, and I'm going to butcher these names up front just so everybody knows. But just smile and nod like I'm saying it right. That's how it's pronounced in the Hebrew and in the Greek. Now Korah, the son of Ezah, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and Dathan and Abihiu, the sons of Eliab. See, I got that one right. Eliab. And the son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, took men, and they arose up before Moses, and a certain number of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, famous in the congregation, men of renown. So what I find funny is he didn't just go grab 250 people and said, hey, we're going to start a rebellion. You guys in? Let's go. He went and he found princes and men of renown name. He found the leaders that were with them to say, hey, we're going to start a rebellion. Why? Because Moses thinks that he's way above us. Do you believe that? He thinks way too much of himself. So I think we should go and talk to him. We should kind of overthrow him. What do you guys think? Everybody jumped on board, all 250 people. For me,
Dogwood.
dogwood,
Or cottonwood.
cottonwood. For me, when I think about that, I start thinking about what else has Moses done before we got here? Because if I read a couple chapters or the book before, remember Moses went up and down the hill up and down the mountain a couple times, stayed up there for 40 days, came back down, threw the tablets at a cow, busted it, and all of a sudden the ground opened up and ate a whole bunch of people. I don't think I'd mess with him. Moses says we're going here, let's go. I don't want to go that way, don't care. Why? Did you see what happened to the last people that said no?
Yeah.
Think about it. Back when that happened, the only ones that didn't bow down to the calf was the Levites.
Yep.
Out of all the tribes.
Yep.
So what did God do? Instead of the firstborn being the priests, now only the Levites could be priests. Every priest was a Levite, but not every Levite was a priest. Catch that?
Yep.
Yes. Good. I don't want to say it again because I think I'll mess it up. But what happened, when you think about that, if you were a firstborn, all of a sudden you pretty much lost your birthright. Now you're not going to be a priest because you bowed down back then. Now when we look at him, all of a sudden now he's starting to go, hey, I got 250 people and let's go talk to Moses. So they jump back in and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron and said to them, you take too much upon you, saying the whole congregation is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Therefore, when you lift up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord. So these guys came and they said, hey, you guys think that you're way up here. And we're a holy nation, so everybody here is holy. Everybody here is holy. We're all on the same playing field. Why do you think that you're so much higher? You know, one of the things about rebellion, and when you start to rebel in any way, the first part of it is obviously self. The second part typically is going to be where it's self-led or jealousy.
Yep.
The third part is going to be conspiring with others. Why? Because he went and grabbed 250 people of renowned name and princes. And from there, it always comes down to the cunning words. We've all been in an argument with somebody, and all of a sudden they hit that point to where you know it's on, and all of a sudden the way that they talk to you all of a sudden cuts just a little bit deeper. The words that you say are carry a little bit more weight. Realistically, it means that there's a whole lot more sarcasm that's being spoken. And that's exactly what they did. When you're telling Moses, you take too much upon you, for the whole congregation is holy. You know, for me, when I go through this, Moses is one of my heroes in the Bible. Not just because it talks about that he was the most humble, but he went through a lot.
Yeah.
He was given up by his mom. Okay, Lord, we trust you. Send him down the river. Hey,
Yeah.
keep an eye on your brother. He was raised in the palace. He was chased out of the palace.
Yeah.
He murdered some people. He went out to the wilderness and he found his girl because he was fighting again. Went back. Dad was like, here's 7 of my daughters. Which one you want? Okay. He spent time out there, 40 years. The burning bush probably flipped him out. Then to have to go back to see Pharaoh and to go through all the plagues, he went through some stuff. So after all these people come up to him and tell him, you think you're so big and bad because we're all holy, the first thing that he does, first thing that I would do is lay hands on somebody because I brought you here. But what does Moses do? In verse 4, and when Moses heard it, he fell on his face.
Yeah.
The first thing that he did is he fell on his face. Why? It wasn't because he was like, you guys are right. No. He was like, Lord, do you hear this? Do you hear what they're saying? Your kids. Again, your kids.
Yeah, I like
I'm
that.
sure every parent has been, your kid acts up, come take care of your kid. My kid doesn't act like that, so come take care of your kid.
It's interesting he didn't defend himself. He didn't try to ask, well, what did I do? Like, he didn't try to, like, reason with them. Not at all. Yeah.
And we'll get into
He lets
why.
God defend him. Yeah, he lets
Exactly.
God do it. He did not defend himself.
So,
Yes, that's what he did. Yeah.
so with that, the next thing that comes is the accusation. Because the accusation is always going to be, you're this. You think this about yourself. The awesome thing, stack my notes, we're looking at them. The awesome thing
I
is because,
read the portion.
yeah, but I read it too, but I didn't get this part out of it until later.
Okay, go.
The awesome thing about it is he didn't defend himself. Why? Because when the accusation came, he took himself out of it. And he's like, Lord, you heard what they did, you heard what they said. I'm not going to defend myself. I'm not here to defend myself to these people on what you've told me to do.
Right.
He's like, okay. He humbled himself.
Amen.
And you know, the Bible talks about the accuser of the brethren.
Yeah.
So we know in pretty much everything that we do, to be successful, it takes two people. The two shall become one. One shall chase 1,000, two shall chase 10,000. And there's already one accuser.
Yeah.
The devil sits and accuses you of stuff every single day. You're not this. Hey, I thought you were a Christian. You can't say that. You can't act like that. You're holy. He tells us all the time of what we can't do. So when you team up with the devil and you start to accuse people, now you've actually given them power, because now there's two that are accusing, two that are murmuring, two that are complaining. I was talking about it last night. I said, the Bible says that death and life are in the power of the tongue. Someone goes, no, life and death are in the power of the tongue. I said, look it up. In our Bible it says death and life are in the power of the tongue. Why? Because for us it's easier to speak death than it is to speak life to somebody.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, for me, when I was in high school, our youth pastor said, okay, we're going to do 2 album covers, which shows you how old that is, I think. That's bad. One album cover is going to be for the devil and one's going to be for God. So what do you want on the one for the devil? And everyone's like, blood and the Grim Reaper and the pentagram and like 38 things over here. Okay, what do you want for God's? A cross, a dove, maybe an angel and some light or a sun. Okay, what else? That's it. Okay. The crazy part is there's 50 of us there, and that's all we came up with. So it shows us, even in that, we are really, really good at speaking and talking about death, negative stuff.
Yeah.
When it comes to speaking on God and speaking on the positive things, it's tough.
Yeah.
And it's only tough because the negative stuff, we engulf ourselves with that. I sat down and watched TV with my boys. I'm like, okay, go ahead and put the TV on. What do you guys want to watch? Okay. And they're like, Dad, can we just watch YouTube? Sure. So they pulled out their tablets. They're, playing on it. And I'm like, what are we watching? They named some... Dinner time. They pulled up some bear that hides in the dark, this a mechanical bear that comes out and murders people. We watched this at school. You watch this at school? Yeah, everybody watches it. Wow. Everybody but you two. But those are the things that when we start to look at, the accuser's always there, and I'm watching that and I'm like, wow, I wonder how many times they've watched this while I was working or whatever. And the first thing I heard, your kids watch that? What kind of parent are you? You must be a bad dad if your kids are watching that and you don't even know about it. How long have they been watching that? I'm like, I don't know. And I had to think about it. It's not about how long they've been watching it. It's that they don't watch it from here forward. Mm-hmm. That's the part that really matters, is being a little bit more proactive on my part. Mm-hmm. So we know that the accuser is always going to try to come in and always going to try to speak negatively on anything and everything that's going to happen. So we jump to verse 5. And he spoke unto Korah and unto the company, saying, even tomorrow the Lord will show who is his and who is holy, and will cause him to come near unto them. Even him who has chosen will he cause to come near unto him. This dude take a censer. You guys know what a censer is?
Yes.
What is it?
Census or censor?
Censer. Censors.
Burning
something to do with incense.
Exactly. It was a plate that they would burn incense on. So he told them to put fire on the incense and to come before the Lord tomorrow And he had, let's see. So he told all 250 men to make sure that they bring their censer tomorrow and that they're going to meet in front of the tent of meetings. And this is where I look at Moses and the 3 verses before, we watch how people accuse him and he drops down on his face. This time, in the same thing, he says, the Lord will choose who shall be holy. You take too much upon you, the sons of Levi. So he's putting it right back on them, just like they were being cunning and how they were talking to him and telling Moses, Moses, you think that you're way up here. Moses is like, I've just done what God's told me to do up to this point. You guys think that you're higher than where you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So tomorrow, we'll really find out and we'll let God do it. So, let's see. So when we jump down to verse 12, it says, Moses sent and called Nadab, Abihiu, the son of Eliab, and they did not come. So the next day, they told him, hey, we want you to come down because we're going to go ahead and we're going to meet the Lord at the tent of meetings. And all 3 guys were like, nope, we're not coming. So not only the day before did you and 250 people call Moses and Aaron out, but now when he's like, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to let the Lord show you who it's going to be and who the Lord wants, they're like, you know what, we're not coming. We're good. If you think about that, the level of disrespect that was, not just to call them out in front of everybody, but the next day to say, okay, we're going to let the Lord choose. You know what? We're not even going to go and meet the Lord. We're just going to stay back here. Let that sink in. The Lord told Moses, hey, have all these guys come here, and I'm going to choose who I'm going to speak to. And they're like, you know what? We're not going to do that. Yeah. Not mom said so, dad said so. Hey, God just spoke and said, we all got to go meet down there. No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm going to stay here.
So be it.
Right. What's that mean? I don't really want to live anymore. So, let's see here. So what they said is, they continue to call him out and say, is it a small thing that you have brought us out of the land of flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness? Except you make yourself altogether a prince over us. Moreover, you have not brought us into the land flowing with milk and honey, or given us inheritance of the fields, the vineyards. Will you put out the eyes of these men? Will you not come up? So what is he saying? He's pretty much telling them, you brought us out. You said you were going to bring us to the land flowing with milk and honey. I don't see any milk and honey flowing around here.
No.
I don't see an inheritance given to me out here in the middle of the desert. So why am I here? Why am I following you now?
Complaining.
And Moses was very wroth and said unto the Lord, respect not their offerings. Think about this. I have not... I'm just going to read out of how my Bible is, and I just have to... It'll make sense when I read it. Respect not their offerings. I have not taken one ass from them. Neither have I hurt one of them. He hasn't taken anything from them. Literally, he hasn't taken anything from them. And what do? They continue to murmur and complain. Murmur and complain. I'm hungry. Okay, he fed me. I'm thirsty. Okay, he fed me. It's too hot out here. Can we just go back? At least they fed us. Can we go back to Egypt? Like, we were slaves, but at least my belly was full. Forget being free, but can we just go back? Think about it. I don't know about you guys. Mine are 6 and 7. They murmur and complain about everything.
Yeah.
And I even give them ice cream. I didn't want mint. I wanted strawberry. When I asked you, you said mint. I know, but I meant strawberry. Come get your kid. No, just kidding. Luther, come get your nephews. They need help.
Dad needs help.
Dad needs help too.
Or Robertson.
We're on camera, we can't say that.
Sorry.
And Moses said to Korah, be thou and all thy company before the Lord, and they and Aaron tomorrow, and take every man his censer and put incense in them before, and come and stand before in the tent of meetings. Jumping down to verse 19. And Korah gathered all the congregation against them unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord appeared unto all the congregation. If you think about that part of it, we went down to the tabernacle, and all of a sudden the glory of God came down. I don't care who you are. You can say anything you want behind anybody's back, but when the real boss comes in, nobody says anything. Like, I was just kidding around. I didn't really mean that. I was just playing. But what do these guys do? They continue. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, separate yourselves from amongst this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. They were part of the whole congregation. And he said, hey, separate yourself from them.
Yeah. Be separate.
Why, Lord? Because I'm going to consume them.
Yep.
Okay. So what's Moses do? Any takers? Does what Moses does. No, he falls on his face. Falls on, Lord, forgive them. They don't know what they did. Lord, no. God's like, nope, it's already done. Separate yourself from them. Moses fell upon his face and said, O Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and wilt thou be worth with the whole congregation? Lord, just for one of them messing up, you're going to kill them all? And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the congregation, saying, get you up from about the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Moses rose up and went to Dathan, Abiram. The elders of Israel followed him, and spoke unto the congregation, saying, depart, I pray you, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest you be consumed with their sins. Can you imagine being in the tent next to them? Gotta go! You're dying. What? We were friends, but we're not friends anymore. Why? Because you're not in my congregation anymore. God said we're moving over here and you're staying. We can laugh, but that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. He said, hey, we're out. We can't be near this guy no more. And he spoke unto the congregation, depart, from these wicked men. So they got up from the tabernacle, and Korah, Dath, Abihiu on every side, and Dathan and Abiram came up and stood at the door of their tents, and their wives and their sons and their little children. Then Moses said thereby, you shall know the Lord has sent me to do all these works, for I have not done them of my own mind. If these men die the common death of all men, old age or sickness, or if they are visited after the visitation of all men, then the Lord has not sent me. Okay? So if they die of natural causes, old age, they're good, and God gave them a pass. We all know that saying, but God. Verse 30, but God, but if the Lord make a new thing, in the earth open up her mouth and swallow them with all their family unto them, and they go down quick into the pit, then you shall understand that these men have provoked the Lord. Kind of a common theme if we remember back that God's already opened up the earth and swallowed up a whole bunch of people. But hey, if you just die of natural causes, it's okay. God gave you a pass. But if He didn't give you a pass, the earth is going to open up and it's going to swallow you alive and pretty much take you to hell, and then it's going to close back up. Is that how everybody else understands it?
It blows my mind how stupid they were. Like, that was so specific. Moses is being very specific. Well, the earth will open up. I mean, telling all the details, and then people are like, yeah, right.
But think about this though.
You know, like he did it over and over, but they just don't believe him.
Sure. But if we look at it, Yeshua is merciful. He's still giving them an out. They can still repent. They can say, Lord, I messed up. I shouldn't have got 250 people to come against Moses and Aaron. My bad. Forgive me.
What is it? Pride goes before the fall. Literally.
Yes. Yes.
Close.
That was good.
Pride comes before
Destruction. Haughty spirit. Arrogance. It's basically hand in hand.
hand in hand.
You can't have pride
So-
without a haughty spirit. Same thing.
So when you look at how specific He is, by the time He's done, He's going to make sure that He's not going to open up the earth by Himself. If you die because of natural causes, you die because of natural causes, and God didn't send me to do this.
Yeah.
But if you die this certain way where the earth opens up after I've told everybody to move away from them, well, that's on you guys. So, right after He speaks that, and it came to pass, as He made them, and ended speaking all these words, the ground opened up, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their houses, and all the men, and unto Korah, and all their goods. And they and all their apparel went down alive into the pit, and the earth closed upon them, and they perished from among the congregation. Yeah. They became their own congregation after the earth ate them. And all of Israel that were around them fled at the cry of them. And they said, "Lest the earth swallow us also." God gave them so many chances
Yeah.
of what to do. Moses gave them so many chances. Why? Because even when they accused him, he dropped to his face. He's like, come on, guys. Don't do this.
Did I understand that when they were swallowed up, their whole family was swallowed up? Wasn't it like
Everybody.
their wife and the kids and everybody?
Wife,
like
kids,
the whole family got
tents,
swallowed?
everything.
Yeah. Okay.
It would be like watching all that right there in the center. The earth opens up, everything falls down, and then the earth closes the mouth back up. And all of a sudden it looks like that.
They might call that an earthquake. They'll justify it some way. They'll find a scientific name.
It's a big sinkhole. That filled
There you
itself
go, a
back in
sinkhole. There you go.
Afterwards.
That's what they would call it.
after it ate the people.
Yeah.
So verse 35, and there came out a fire from the Lord and consumed all 250 men that offered incense. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, that he take up the censers out of the burning and scatter the fire yonder. The censers of these sinners against their own souls, let them make board plates for the covering of the altar. So all 250 guys that were lined up outside of the tent of meetings, the presence of the Lord came out and wiped them all out. The censers that they had that were full of incense, now, because God touched them, now they're holy. So he told the priests, go and get them, take all them, and put them out, hammer them out and put them on the altar. When we look at through Revelations, when we look at the Battle of Armageddon, what happens with all the swords and the weapons from there? Those
hammered into plowshares.
Hammered into
Plows.
Exactly, to go back into work the land. So it kind of gives us a representation of how God is continuing to reuse things. He's continuing to make things holy.
It was interesting that in verse 35 it said, Then fire came out from Adonai and destroyed the 250 men who had offered the incense. Now, you would think when Moses told these guys to line up with your incense, they would be remembering Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihiu, who offered unauthorized incense, and fire from God broke out and consumed them.
Yeah.
So, with them being part of the priesthood, they should have remembered that.
Yeah.
And they said, so it really was kind of a prideful thing, like, hey, we're holy too. I like how Kora uses the argument, the priesthood of all believers, so to speak, as the basis for, justification for his rebellion.
So after that happens, if we go to verse 41, it's the next day. Verse 41, but on the morrow, all the congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron, saying, You have killed the people of the Lord.
Yeah, I did that. I made the ground open up. Yeah, it was me.
When you start to look at that, think about the root. When we go back to the actual root that's inside, they know that it wasn't Moses that opened up the earth. They know that it wasn't Moses that called fire out of the tent of meetings to kill 250 people the day before. But inside of them, that seed of self was never taken care of. They never looked at it and said, okay, God did this. I need to make sure that my relationship with God is correct. They looked at it and said, did you see what he did? Did you see what they did? When you start to think about it, that's the same thing that the enemy tries to get us to do. Did you see what he did? It wasn't me. Did you see what the devil did? Lord, did you see what the devil made me do? There's always something that's trying to point away from what the real issue is. Because the real issue is in our own hearts and in ourselves. That's what we have to deal with. we all know that we have that one thing or 5 things or whatever inside this, like, man, I gotta work on that. But until you actually come to grips with what's inside, you're always gonna be pointing the finger out. Well, why are you like this? I'm like this because my parents raised me like that. If I would have had better parents, I'd be better. My dad wasn't around, but if I would have had a dad, ooh, I'd be good. Really?
Or worse.
Or worse. You know, but what it really comes down to is we have to look inside of ourselves. And when we look inside of ourselves, we can go, okay, this is the root issue. Why? Because if we look back with the children of Israel, they've murmured and complained since they plundered and walked away with everything. They were walking through the wilderness. I'm hungry. There's food. Manna again. Really? We're out here in the middle of the desert. You got food. I'm so thirsty. I'm gonna die. Go over here. Talk to the rock. Give him something to drink. They murmured and complained the entire time. Moses goes up the mountain. Where's Moses? He probably died. Let's take everybody's gold and build a cow. Why? Because we can worship it. It'll be awesome. What? They've murmured and complained the entire time because they've never looked inside of themselves to find out why. Why they don't stop doing that. So verse 42, and it came to pass, when the congregation was gathered against Moses and against Aaron, that they looked towards the tabernacle of the congregation, and behold, the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared again. Remember last time the glory of the Lord appeared? Yesterday, it killed 250 people. And all of a sudden, it's back. And Moses and Aaron came before the tabernacle of the congregation, and the Lord spoke unto Moses, get you up from among this congregation. Wait, what? When was the last time we heard that? A couple verses ago when he was getting ready to kill everybody again. That I may consume them as a moment. And they, what did Moses do? And they fell on their faces. And Moses and Aaron said, take a censer, put the fire therein off from the altar, and put the incense. See, the incense was the presence of the glory of the Lord. Wherever that was, that's where God was. So any sickness, any disease, or anything like that couldn't pass over that if the incense was around. And go quickly unto the congregation and make an atonement, and there is wrath gone out from the Lord. The plague has begun. So Moses already knew that as soon as that was happening, he already knew that the plague already started. So what did he do? Aaron, grab this incense, go to the middle of the camp. Why? The plague's already started. Just go. What I love about it is Aaron didn't try to talk Moses out of it. He didn't go, I mean, remember last time? Remember yesterday? He didn't do that. He's like, go and do this. And as soon as he was told to do it, he went to do it. If you think about it, Moses told Aaron that the plague has already started. If the plague's already started, are you really going to run out into the middle of the camp where the plague already is? That's trust. That's a lot of trust. What? I don't want to die. I'm just going to stay here. The plague started over there. God didn't say he's going to kill us. He said, separate from that congregation. We're already separated. We're good. We could stay right here and live. And he told them, no, go. And Aaron took as Moses commanded and ran into the midst of the congregation. And the plague has begun amongst the people. And he put the incense and made atonement for the people. And he stood between death he stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stayed, or the plague stopped. Now, he ran out there with the incense in the middle of the camp. And on this side, people were already dead. And on this side, people were alive, looking at the people that died already because of the plague. And you're standing there in the middle with incense. The last 2 days, they've been coming against you. Now, congratulations, you're the hero, because if I'm on this side, I'm still alive. Shouldn't have stood too close. On the wrong side of the line this time. And when that happened, 14,700 beside them had died about the manner of Korah. So the guy that started the rebellion got 250 people killed. Because of that, the families and everybody else, the next day, friends, etc., rose up against Moses and Aaron again, saying that they killed them. And because of that, 14,700 people died because of the plague. 14,700 people died because of the plague that God instantly put on.
Because they grumbled and complained.
Because they murmured and complained.
Because the other ones died. So they were complaining because the other ones
They
died.
repeated the sin. It's got to be worse.
They repeated the sin.
That's right.
It's a cycle.
So is the actually saying plague, are they actually saying like the Black Death, or are they just saying the plague as in the plague of thought? That
they don't really go into what the plague was. Like whether it was a sickness or whatever, or like people got boils or whatever. It just says it.
Could assume, since he spoke of leprosy a lot in the Bible, could have been just an advanced stage of leprosy.
You could assume that. You could assume that it was like when the angel of death went by and people just fell out. Like it doesn't really say either way like what it was that killed them. It just said that people would drop out dead. You know, when that happened, when you start looking at it, it's all because they continued to repeat the same thing of murmuring and complaining. The more that we murmur and the more that they complained, the more that they aligned themselves with exactly the devil of where he continued to accuse them. You know, when you start to look at it in that aspect, we have to watch what our words are. You know, we can complain about anything. We can have the best day in the world, we can still find something to complain about. But God looks at it and goes, stop focusing on all the bad stuff. Look at the good stuff. Look where I've brought you from. You know,
Look where I'm taking you to.
Exactly. You know, I can look back over the last few years and go, man, that's been rough. This is the worst part of my life. And I go, but it was for a reason. Way happier now than I was then. And I'm looking years ahead and I'm like, I'm way happier then than I am now. So when I start looking at it, it's about being grateful. We have to start to be grateful for what God is doing in us, for what God is doing through us. Why? Because every day we should be growing closer to Him. You know, every day should be an internal internal review of, this is where I'm at, but Lord, I know you have more for me. Where do I need to humble myself? Where do I need to be more like Moses? You know, one of the things that I had to learn is being humble isn't being weak. Being humble doesn't mean that people can walk all over you. Being humble just goes, Lord, not my will, but you tell me what you have for me, and that's what I'm going to do. It might look like I might take a step backwards or 3 steps backwards, but you're just setting me up for my comeback of where you're actually preparing me to go to. Keep a little bit on time because so when we go into chapter... When we go into chapter 17, what he does is he goes to each of the tribes and he actually takes the leaders' rods, bundles them all together, he puts them in the tent of meetings, and he says, because that is going to determine who is actually going to lead them and who can actually be in the presence of the Lord. Because remember, every priest was a Levite, but not every Levite was a priest. So when they put him in there, he said that they would, those that are going to lead and those that are going to be able to be into his presence are going to bloom. So what they do, they took their old staffs that they walked through the desert with, and they gave him those. We all know those are dead. So we're setting ourselves up for a miracle to see what's going to happen. They did that, and the next day when Moses went in to take a look at them, Aaron's not only blossomed, but it blossomed, it bloomed, and it actually had fruit that produced on it. Anybody know what kind?
Staff?
Yep.
I think it was almonds.
Almonds, exactly. So his had bloomed, and it actually had almonds on it. Meaning that was one that could actually come into the presence of the Lord. It wasn't you could just do the duties on the outside, but you actually got to go into it. Chapter 18, one of the things... Let me jump over to it real quick. Chapter 18 started to go into how the Levites were actually in charge of the sanctuary. And if anything happened, they were held responsible for what happened. The parallel to that is we are the temple of God. Whether it's what we put into our body, whether it's what we do with our body, we're a temple of God. So just like they were in charge and they had to give account, because they told them, the other 11 tribes, they have to work. The Levites, your whole job is to make sure that the tabernacle, the sanctuary, is holy, is pure, is in good working order. That's your job. That's all your job is. Remember that old saying? That's why we can't have nice things. The Levites are the reason why we can't have nice things, because they took care of the sanctuary for us. So as they did that, that's the same representation that we have to make sure that we take care of ourselves.
That's right.
What does that mean? We have to take care of ourselves. We have to spend time with God. Why? Because if we don't spend time with Him, how are we ever going to know where we're going? We have to be able to do that. And the other part is, with the 11 tribes, they were told that they had to give 1/10 of their first fruits to the Levites, to the sanctuary. One of the things that I didn't catch until later was there's 11 tribes. Well, there's 12 tribes, but the Levites are one. So you have 11 others that are out working, whether it's agriculture, whether it's farming, etc. They're out working and giving their first fruits. If each one gives 10%, it gives the Levites 110%. That the Levites can at that time still give 1/10 as well, and still have 100% for working and for making sure that the sanctuary and the temple is done. It goes through, and you can read it in chapter 18, it goes through for all these things. The Levites could eat a portion of this, they could have this, whether it's the men or whether it's the entire family. There are certain things that each one could have. And then it draws a hard line. It says, once it gets to this part, these are God's. Whatever these sacrifices are, these are for God and God alone. So that's all I have for tonight. Did you have
That's
anything
awesome.
else you wanted to add to?
Yeah.
Can I share a scripture after you're done, Luther?
What the?
Can I share a scripture after you're done?
Yeah. So, just a few pointers. I found it interesting, looking at Korah's rebellion. Now, Korah was a relative of Moses, right? He was also, if you look at his family tree, he was the firstborn. So he was part of, or supposed to be part of the original priesthood, but then it switched to the Levites. But a lot of commentators or sages would say that he was actually a prince in Egypt. They go so far as to say that he found some of the hidden gold that Joseph had squirreled away during the famine.
Korah did?
Yeah. And so he was able to handle that money, and he had a lot of wealth, a lot of prestige. He was a leader, and he was part of the Kohath tribe, which was part of the priesthood, right?
So he wasn't a nobody.
He wasn't a nobody.
Yeah.
And so he comes to Moses, and he's kind of like, hey, I need to be in on this, because whatever he had going on in Egypt, he had that prestige, and he's like, this needs I came out of that, and now I need to bring it here, right? And it got me thinking that how often do we attain something and we want to keep it? And when we transition through different phases and stages of life, that we want to take that prestige, that notoriety, whatever it is that we've built, and transfer it into the thing, into the next thing, right? It's almost like you're a big fish in a small pond, and now you come to the big pond, and you still want to maintain that big fish mentality, right? But that's not the case anymore. Everything has changed. The dynamics have changed. You're the new guy now.
Yeah.
So you come in, and they don't care about your experience. They don't care about all this stuff, because you're the new guy. You have to prove yourself all over again. Now, when you try to sidestep that, the only way you can do that is to attack the leadership around you, okay? And so this is where it becomes problematic. You look at ministry, we see this all the time.
Church
people they become dissatisfied with the leadership. Then the leadership becomes the bad guy. They start to get blamed for all the problems, all the evils. You rally people to your cause. Oh, can you believe what Pastor so-and-so said, what they did? I can't believe they would do that. If I was in their position, I wouldn't do anything, like all this kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And this is rebellion.
Yeah.
Okay? There is a way that if somebody is doing something in error, that you can address that without becoming rebellious in nature.
Well, Scripture tells us how to. It tells us how to approach. It's a complete layout of how you approach it.
Dealing with offenses.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting that Korah had every opportunity to build himself up, to become part of everything that was going on in a righteous way.
Right.
He had the accolades, he had the background, right? He could have stepped in and said, hey, I want to be a part of this. What can I do, right? Step in as a servant, what can I offer, instead of, hey, let me come in and run the show. And then it cost him his life. So pretty interesting dynamics there.
And that it wasn't just him, that he took a bunch of people out with him.
Yes, he took, and
so
that's
how you
happens.
see the church splits happen all the time. Now, when we left the church that we were part of for years, it was actually the only church I ever attended. When we left, it was very hard, but we didn't tell even my family. We didn't explain, and we didn't, because of that very reason, is we didn't want to take people with us. And it was hard for some of my family because I didn't explain everything to them, but we knew we needed to do it quietly and let God do what God needed to do, and not interfere with their opinions and their judgments of things. And that's how we left. But a lot of times what you will see is, you'll see it when somebody leaves a church, they take 1, 2, 3, 4 families, and now there's a split from that. And that's exactly what we're seeing here in Scriptures. Is almost like the first church split is kind of what we're seeing here.
And then, just to interject, that just goes to show you that when they say one person can make a difference, you can either make a difference positively
or negative.
Negatively.
Yeah.
And then, what is your legacy?
That's really good.
Is it going to be positive, or is it going to be negative? And are you going to be the Korah that everybody talks about?
Yeah.
Are you going to be the Joshua that everybody talks about?
That's really good. What kingdom are you a part of? What kingdom are you representing? It's just to take time to reflect on that.
Right. Every day.
So thank you, Brother Jason.